Hi everyone, welcome to Books to TV. Hopefully you're in the right place, and if not, hopefully you want to stay anyway. My name is Kailee, and I'll be moderating this panel, and we'll be discussing until about the last 10 minutes at like 7:40, 7:45, and then we'll get some audience questions at the end. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to ask, but we will go ahead and start. Okay, so let's go down and introduce ourselves and get right into it, and give us your favorite book to TV adaptation and why it is your favorite. I can go first. So I'm Kailee Brown, and I am a local filmmaker. I've made a lot of shows like on YouTube, one based on Northanger Abbey, one based on The Babysitter's Club, and then another one based off of Harry Potter. So I've done a little bit of like creating in the realm. And then I also co-host a podcast called Nina and Rose Talk About Shows, where we just talk about TV shows and stuff. So I'm a big fangirl and a big TV nerd. I'm really excited about this panel. I'm excited to talk to you guys. And yeah, I'd say my favorite adaptation, I mean, it's hard to choose, but right now mine is probably Game of Thrones, as you can see by my shirt. I am reading the books right now. I'm on book 2, and I just am like obsessed and so into it all over again after watching the show. So that's probably my favorite. Runners up would be The Magicians or Haunting of the Hill House. So we can just go down the line.
All right, hi. My name is Cee Brown. I am just a really big fan of mostly fantasy novels. I read Harry Potter when I was a kid and couldn't get enough of that, and I've just kept reading them, and so I'm a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and Patrick Rothfuss and just so many big names in the genre. And my favorite TV adaptation of a film is actually not a fantasy, but it is Haunting of Hill House, because it's really scary, and we don't get enough of that in TV. So I really, really liked that they did a solid adaptation of that.
It's really good.
I'm Aubrey Johnson. I'm a former writer for Shareable. I most recently did a panel on modern adaptations of classics at Crossings Con. And I'm a generational fantasy nerd, Renaissance fairs, Dungeons & Dragons, the whole work I grew up doing. My favorite adaptation right now, I would say, is Good Omens. I love Good Omens.
My name is Brianna Fajardo. I'm a big book nerd, especially when it comes to YA fantasy, mysteries and thrillers. I also love movies and TV, so I'm really excited about this today. But my favorite book to TV adaptation right now is probably Shadow and Bone. I'm pretty obsessed with it at the moment.
Oh yeah, Shadow and Bone's a good one. I love that. What are some elements that you guys think that make a good book to TV adaptation?
I think for me, it's, in speaking as an adaptation, you have to have something that speaks to the core of the character and of the plot.
Totally.
You can't just, like, I'm fine with people making changes, but if the character feels completely different because the director decided that they didn't like the way the character was written or something like that, that just drives me crazy, because one of the reasons why we love the way that characters are, or the way that worlds are built, is because they have these delightful nuances to them. And so when you watch an adaptation and that nuance is lost or changed or something like that, it feels a little bit like betrayal, honestly.
Yeah, I think it is really important to have good characterization. I liked what you said about like they don't necessarily need to stay the same, but yeah, like their core nature should be there, and like if it feels like something the character would do, it's gonna be okay like in the series. But I don't know, when they're veering away from like what you believe they are, like it seems kind of weird and off.
For sure.
Anyone else have any comments on that?
Something that I think really helps is when they have like a really, just a clear vision in mind for what they want out of it, because I feel like a lot of the times you get adaptations where they start out strong, or they have like a few strong key elements, but then it just doesn't really come together, or they didn't know exactly what they were doing with it. I'm thinking particularly of Game of Thrones, where it started so strong as an adaptation, but then they just had no idea how to finish it off, and so by the time they reached the end, it was just limping to the finish line. And so it's like, whenever you get an adaptation, I feel like you need to like know going in at least the general idea of what's going on if you want it to finish strong, or else it's just gonna, it won't be complete by the time it's over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even like the tone, like if they're going to commit to it being a drama, being super serious, and then suddenly it's like really camp. You're like,
Yeah.
what's going on? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, you have to set those expectations from the beginning, like what the tone is going to be.
Yeah, tone was one of mine as well. I think tone is like maybe the most important thing for me. Like if it feels like how I feel when I'm reading the book, like they're doing a good job, like I think it's gonna go well, even if they're changing some stuff. Like if I get the same feeling and the same like world building, essentially, like it's gonna work out the way that I think it like should.
Yeah.
So,
It'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be okay. Brianna?
Something I would say is, I guess this is something that I like would say makes like a bad adaptation. I don't know. Something that I've noticed that I haven't enjoyed is like bringing in major plot points from like later on in the series, which I think like sometimes takes away from like the character development and things like that. And so, yeah, I think it's good when you just like keep it like in like the chronological order.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, a couple more of mine were so like making sure you also like correctly, not only like making good character choices, but correctly capturing like the character's essence and like casting and stuff. Because I think a wrong casting choice can completely ruin a character.
Yeah.
And obviously like writing and stuff has a big influence on that. And I don't think they always need to stay true to the story, but I think it does help sometimes when a good adaptation like can stay true to the story where it matters.
Yeah.
Although a good example of a thing that doesn't really have the same story is Haunting of Hill House, has a completely different story from the book, but it works so well. And I think because Mike Flanagan is the one who created the show, and he had really good characters. He took those characters and like elevated them and made them better. So I think if you can almost make it better, like it's going to be okay. Also, the other thing is having someone at the head of the adaptation who actually cares about the source material.
Yes.
If they don't care, then it's not gonna work out. I mean, we're not talking about movies, but that kind of happened with like Harry Potter. So
Right.
Yeah.
You can tell that with Good Omens. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, I was listening to the Good Omens audiobook for the first time this summer, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, they just captured that so perfectly. And obviously, like, Neil Gaiman was a part of it.
That's good.
But, like, it's one of those things where there can be diversity in whether or not it's completely faithful to the source material or, like, completely goes away from it. But it's just a matter of, like, well, it has to be good at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a good point, though. If the original creator is alive, they probably should be involved at least somewhat, I think, in the making of the series, or else it's, you never know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, have them there to, like, hold people's hand and make sure it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you guys have seen these things brought to life? What are some shows that have, like, good examples of, like, character, I don't know, like, stories?
One that I wrote down was The Leftovers, which is it's a 3-season show, but only the first season really was adapted from the novel that it's based on, whereas the other 2 seasons were building off of that. And that's one that I think they did a really good job of just understanding, having like a clear vision, kind of like I said, where it's like they understood where they could take these characters and where they could take this show as it went on, and it really just like goes in a completely different direction from where the original starts, but it finishes in just such a strong and like poignant way. And so that's one that I think if you can understand what the key purpose of the original story is, then you can take it from there, and then you can tell different stories in the same universe. And that's tough to do, but I think when you can get it right, it really, really, really shines.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but there are definitely series out there that are adapted from maybe, like, there's certain ones where there's a book series and then it gets adapted into a TV series, but there's some where you adapt it from, like, one novel. And so you only have so much source material and you kind of have to keep going, which I think is really fun. And so it's cool that they were able to do a good job with that.
Yeah, for sure.
One of mine that I really enjoy with tone is the series of Unfortunate Events series.
Yeah.
I thought that was so fun. I watched the whole thing. I was so into it, and it made me want to go back and read the books, but like in the best way, where I just like, oh, like I want to go back to this. I want more, but I want it more because of the show and because it did such a good job. Like it made me excited about it again, and that show perfectly captured like the dark humor of the whole thing, and just like the weirdness of those books. But I think that was for me that was a really good example of how they just like they totally nailed the tone.
The movie gave me nightmares.
Yeah, the movie. I'm really glad they like gave it its due justice with the TV series because I loved it so much. It was so good. It was perfect.
I really like The Magicians.
Yes.
Just in terms of like talking about like committing to a tone and world building. I also think like like with TV shows, a strong ensemble is super important.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
true.
And The Magicians is just like, oh, that. It's so good. And the costumes are just fantastic.
Yeah.
And oh man, yeah, I love
The Magicians is one of my favorite shows like of all time. So I totally agree with that. And you make a good point about the ensemble cast. They nail it there. They do such a good job. Everyone there is so good. And it just gets better every season.
Yeah,
too.
I know.
Like,
it's ridiculous.
It's incredible. I love that one. Brianna, do you have any?
I think just like going back to like staying true to a character, I love Nell's character in The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh yes, that's a good
Because
one.
that's like the main character in the book as well. And I feel like they really captured kind of like her like paranoia in the series, which was also in the book. And I feel like that's kind of one of the main like plot points of that book.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of the house being alive and like being what is like affecting all the other characters. I mean, the characters are pretty different. The other characters are pretty different in the book than like in the series, but I feel like the house is like kind of a character. Like
The house is
itself.
totally a character.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I really liked the way that they like captured that in the series as well. And just kind of like that creepy factor that Shirley Jackson has in like a lot of her stories. So I really love that.
Yeah, I think that.
I feel like that's like a unique thing that sci-fi and fantasy gets to do is like the setting can be a character. Like
Yes.
I can think of a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy stories where like one specific like a building or a place of some kind is like personified and
Yeah, like the Magician's Fillory is kind of a
exactly.
character.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay, what are some examples of some adaptations that you have not enjoyed or you don't think have done well, and why? Brianna, I see your face. I want to hear you.
I feel I have a very strong opinion about the Shadowhunters series that
Oh.
was done
Yeah.
on Freeform. I'm a really big fan of Cassandra Clare and like all of her books and the whole Shadowhunters universe. And so I was extremely excited when they decided to pick that up again after the movie and do the Shadowhunters series. But a lot of the casting choices just like I did not like.
Okay, but Harry Shum Jr.
Yeah, he was good. He was good. He's excluded. But if you think about like Jason Clary, so like Catherine McNamara and Dominic Sherwood, I did not like that at all. Especially like Jason's character, it just like he didn't like fit the like broodiness at all. He also didn't have a British accent. Which I don't know why that was so big for me, but it was.
Listen,
and then,
British
yeah,
accents are attractive.
Yeah, so that one is just the biggest one for me, and I think it wasn't a good adaptation.
Yeah, I've read a couple of those books and I saw various episodes of that series. I have a friend who's also really into them, so I kind of watched it as she was watching it, and she was just like so upset by it. I think it's really sad for the Mortal Instruments series because there's so much potential there. Those books are so good. The characters are amazing. And they had one movie, and the movie's really good, but it didn't continue. And so I think fans were hoping with the show, like, we'd get, like, the adaptation that we were hoping for. And they just, like, kind of changed a lot and did not get the characters right. And it's so unfortunate. Although, yeah, I will agree with Harry Shum Jr. Like,
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
good, so.
he was better than the Magnus Vane from.
Godfrey Go.
Yeah. I liked him more. Yeah, I liked his personality more. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to just I don't know. It's a sad one because I don't know if that series will happen again because it was already
But
made
I
into
want
a
a
BBC
Clockwork
series.
Prince
Oh,
series
yeah.
so badly.
That would be fun. I love that. I
I
haven't
think I
read
heard
those
that
ones.
BBC might be doing
Really?
parental devices,
Well, if
but I don't know
BBC
if
does
that's
it,
still-
I'll trust them.
Are there any other series for you guys that just like didn't quite hit the mark?
For me, it was The Witcher. That really didn't hit the mark.
Ooh, is that why you asked about me?
I did. Well, I think so because they did a really high production value. Obviously, it's Netflix. It's a huge game series if you haven't played it, and so they kind of just threw a ton of money at it. And so I think it looks really good, except it's just the story is it's corny and it went all over the place, and it just like it doesn't grasp like with the same concepts as like even the game does, where the writing is like way better, which is really rare that the game writing is better than the TV series. And so it was just really disappointing to see, because I think it's a really, really fascinating world and really like unique universe. And I really hope the second season can do a lot more with it, of building on what makes that series so fantastic. So
That's how I feel about. It's not fantasy, but that's how I feel about Anne with an E.
Okay, that's on my list. I was like, unpopular opinion maybe, but
Talk about this. I don't know. It just makes you really and like I feel like I'm like it's fantastical in the way that she lives her life and the way that she views the world, and man, I feel like they took away Anne's hope and optimism, and like I think I watched the first season and then I couldn't watch anymore because I'm not a kind of person who's like, it absolutely must be like exactly like the book. It's fine if it's not, and I'm happy to see like a fresh take, but it just like didn't feel like Avonlea or Anne for me.
yeah, I had a hard time with that one too. So for me, I really liked the first season. I watched the first season and I was like, okay, I love this. Like, I don't understand why this show got canceled. And I get why everyone is constantly on Twitter being like, renew Anne with an E. But
Everywhere.
and then watching seasons 2 and 3 got a little better. I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of understand why this got canceled, because it just really veers away from like who Anne is, from the whole story and everything. Like, it adds a lot of like random characters, a lot of storylines. It doesn't stay true to the central character at all. And I mean, for me, I do think sometimes following the book can be important, especially with something as beloved as Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to be careful there, and if you're gonna add stuff, it better really well contribute to the story. And so for those last 2 seasons, it didn't quite as much. Luckily, we do have a really great film series there, so
Yeah.
like, we're not
Well,
totally
I
left
think
in the
part
dark.
of it is like this idea that like it has to be dramatic all the time. And there, like we were talking about tone, like the joy of Anne of Green Gables is like how quiet it is and how like domestic it can be. These like beautiful quiet moments with like 2 characters or 3 characters. So like adding in like, oh, like we need to have like this character be suicidal and this, and it's like, wait, like what is going on?
This isn't the world. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's a little too dramatic, I think.
Yes.
Like, Anne is dramatic, but the rest of the world around her really is not.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, you mentioned characters. So what are some of your favorite characters that like have been adapted, and what are, or like maybe what's your top and what's your least favorite? I don't know. For me, so this is super random or like a little bit more obscure, but I mentioned I'm reading the Game of Thrones books right now, and I thought they did Stannis really well in the series.
Yes.
Like, reading the books, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how did they find the exact book person to like play that role? Like, he is seriously incredible. Like, everything, I don't know, he just like does such a good job, and I thought that was really impressive. I really like a lot of the casting in that show. However, I maybe would feel differently if I had read the books first. So we can kind of get into that a little bit. And then one of my least favorites is Isabel in Shadowhunters. I think she's like kind of dumb and annoying. So I'm very sorry, but
Yeah.
She's such a cool character.
yeah, she is. She's usually really cool.
Yeah.
They ruined it.
My personal favorite, it's from a series we haven't talked about yet because it's not quite as big these days, but I really loved Martin Freeman as Watson from the Sherlock series.
Oh, Sherlock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like Benedict Cumberbatch is also really good, but I feel like Martin Freeman just captures that really like sort of every guyness that you need from Watson, especially because Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock is like not over the top, but he's so like, I don't know, Tony Stark-esque, where he's kind of a jerk, but he's so smart at the same time, and so you really need Watson
like
there to like
100%, like
exactly,
all the time.
exactly.
Yeah.
He's at 100%, and we need just a really strong like personable lead to like ground him. And Martin Freeman, I think, really just captures that essence of like being along for the ride with this crazily smart guy. And he adds a lot of humor, he adds a lot of heart, and I think it's just something that really like makes that adaptation like so popular, and a really underrated character, I think.
I love that. That's a good one.
I really like Aziraphale and Crawley and Good Omens. I just think they're so perfect. And also the Crows and Shadowhunter, or Shadow and Bone. Yeah, you got me started on Shadowhunter, Shadow and Bone.
Yes, the
The
Crows are
Superior TV show. They have just the best chemistry as like a trio. I don't know, maybe I just notice more not characters that stand on their own, but like the characters that are able to like play off of each other. And like the Crows and Shadow and Bone are just so good.
Yeah, I think my favorite is Inej.
Yeah.
Simone. I think she's
I
like
love
the
her.
best of those characters, or like the actors that was in the show. She like captures like her sincerity. Like she's just such a sincere, sweet person, but then she's also like super fierce. And yeah, I just love her and like everybody else in the show, and it makes me really excited for like the rest of the characters that will be in season 2, and it just, yeah, I get super excited when I think about it, but yeah, I love her.
That's a good one. What are some things that you guys, getting a little bit less specific, but what do you think are some things that work better in a TV series that might not like work as well in the book? Like, why do we appreciate things being adapted into TV series almost? For me, one of them was, I think it's kind of, you can show a lot more diversity in film adaptation versus like in a book. In a book, sometimes you don't even always know like the race of a character, what they look like, and everybody kind of visualizes. You can visualize things to look how you want them, or like yourself or whatever. But I do appreciate when a TV series can kind of take that and like add diversity where maybe there wasn't any before, like, and it doesn't change the character, maybe even adds more to them. I mean, for instance, like a lot of people see Hermione as black, and when they made Cursed Child, this is not a TV series, but they were able to make her a black woman, which was cool. The Magicians, like, is another one where there's a lot more diversity in there, and they've kind of been able to add that. So I think that's kind of a cool thing for me. And also getting to see things come to life, I think, is also like another really cool thing. And it's almost cool for like a fandom when something can become so recognizable after it becomes a like film or screen adaptation. For instance, Shadow and Bone. Now people can dress up like a Grisha, and you're gonna know what that's from. But like if you tried to dress up like that before, like nobody's gonna really know the reference because it's not a picture book.
There's not like unified vision.
Yeah, so it's almost cool like just for things like cosplay and I don't know, just being able to almost bond a little more and getting to see that. And I love the visualization of film. I mean, I'm a film girl, so I love stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's a really fun thing for me too.
Yeah, I agree. Like bringing it to life is just like, it like, for me, the thing that really gets me excited is when you get to see the action scenes. Like Game of Thrones, I think is a really big
That's
one
true,
there, where it's like reading it, it's just, I don't know, you don't get that same image, but then when you can actually see like just, I think Game of Thrones, especially in those early seasons where they have those fight scenes with like tons of weight behind them and tons of like, you can feel the choreography. It's like, it's so much more intense. Like just to imagine I think of, who is it? The Mountain and...
Oh yeah, the Hound?
The Hound, yeah, Sandor Clegane. Just like, you know, seeing them on screen as compared to like reading them, it's just like you can see those like the vicious nature of them and just like building to who they are as characters. It's like you really get that just like, I don't know, sort of like a texture, like a tactile feeling that you can't get from books. And that's something I think is really neat about TV adaptations.
Totally.
I really like in sci-fi, I love when they're in space. Like The Expanse is such a good TV show, and part of it is like the magic of being able to see the whole universe. Like, and that's not something that you necessarily can understand the scope of reading in a book.
Absolutely.
And then you see it and you're like, oh man, I could just like sink into this.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think that bringing a world to life is something that I just think is so cool to see on a screen. Like, maybe it's just like me personally, but I feel like there are sometimes certain descriptions, like I just can't picture it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of trouble with that, and then I see it in like a TV show or a movie or whatever, and it just like, I'm like, oh wow, like that's what it was supposed to be, and like now I can see it. So I really like that.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of that with like series of unfortunate events for me. Like, I would kind of picture it a certain way in the book, but I couldn't fully picture it. So I really enjoyed seeing that one come to life on screen and just be like, okay, this is how they're like explaining this. This is how it looks. Like, this makes
All the
so much more
disguises.
sense.
Yes. See how he gets away with it.
Yeah, there's certain things like that where it's just like, I can't fully like comprehend or picture this because every person's different. We're all gonna like be able to picture different things, and some things we're just like I don't know what that is. Like, I can't think of something else. But there's certain things where you're just like, wow, like this is what that looks like. That's so cool. Like, I love being able to kind of see this like in an actual set and what the world looks like, and just, I don't know, seeing all that stuff come to life, I think is so cool.
And I think like getting to see like the tears in characters' eyes, like, like not in like a malicious way, but like getting to actually see that. Like, I'm thinking of Lily Evans in The 11th Hour.
Oh yeah.
They did a short film of the wedding scene between like Lily and James, which like obviously you don't get in the books. Mm-hmm. And that's another wonderful thing about it. You get these like little moments that aren't necessarily in the books.
Yeah, that's true.
But like getting to see them like gazing lovingly at each other, I was just like, oh, my heart, I'm obsessed with them.
That's one of the films that I worked, the one that's based off Harry Potter that you can see on YouTube, actually, the Lily Evans series. So yeah, it is really fun to be able to see that kind of stuff. Do you guys get different opinions on the series, whether you like, do you think you would have a different opinion on something if you read the book first versus like if you watch it first then read the book later?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that? Expand.
Well, I guess like for me, it's not necessarily a book, but like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah.
Like, I know that there are comics, and I don't really read comics, but the difference for me is having never read them, I feel like I don't have expectations going into it of like what, you know, how it will turn out to be, or like what it's supposed to look like or something like that, which is really nice because like you can be pleasantly surprised by how creative someone takes something. And on it, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the TV shows that I watch that are adaptations, I haven't read the books for.
Right.
But it means that I get to experience the magic for the first time, I guess. And I really like that. But at the same time, like, it's really nice to read a book and then see that turned into something that you love.
Yeah, I think there are positives and drawbacks and negatives to both. Like, it's cool to be able to read a book and like imagine it the way you think it looks, and then like get to almost have like a companion or get more from when you see it on screen, versus I think when I watch something first, I then will usually visualize like the characters as the actors or something.
Yeah.
Like with Game of Thrones, like I'm reading it now and I'm visualizing like the actors as the characters. But like Harry Potter, I read first, and I don't visualize those actors like as the characters, and I think it's because I read the books first and like loved them so much and was very into those, or still am. No, was there. But it changes a lot. I think for me too, like if I'm gonna watch the thing first, I'm probably less likely like I'll go back and read the books, and I'm probably not going to be disappointed. But like, there's a bigger chance of being disappointed by a series if you read the books first, which is not bad.
For sure.
Like, you just have more pressure because you want something to be the way you want it to be.
Yeah, I'm definitely more critical when I read the book first.
Yeah.
So like, I know these were movies, but the Percy Jackson movies.
Oh yeah.
I had read all of the books before those came out, and I was really excited. And then like the movie starts, and I'm just like, this is horrible. Like Disney Plus is gonna come through for you.
I'm
so excited.
I really, really hope so.
Yeah.
If they don't,
Yeah,
heads will roll. But
it'll be different. But yeah, like I was very critical and very disappointed, and I've done that with other books to like TV and film adaptations. And then sometimes when I've seen the show like first, I will choose not to read the book because I don't want to be disappointed.
That happened to me with Shadowhunters.
Yeah.
But when I went to saw the movie, I was like so
Okay.
excited. I like dressed up. I was like, yeah. And then I like walked out of the theater and I was like, I regret everything.
So sad. So sad.
the thing for me, I think that really makes the books, I don't know, makes books more enjoyable is the thing I really love about books is you can like get inside those characters' heads, like really in depth. And the one I keep thinking about, it's not out yet. It's Dune is the movie that's coming out soon. Yeah, super excited. But one of the things that I'm like super nervous about is if you've read the books, they're super. Frank Herbert, the author, he loves to like just go on monologues where a character is like in the middle of a fight scene and they'll be thinking 10 steps ahead about what they're going to do, and they'll go on for 20 paragraphs about why they're going to stab them here instead of there or something like that. And that's just obviously not something you can do in a TV show.
No.
And so it's like, and so a lot of the times then when you get to the adaptation as opposed to the book, it's like it can feel shallow if they don't like take the proper care to like flesh out why these moments are so impactful or how it really like does or how it really like affects the character in that moment. And so that's a moment that that's something that I'm really crossing my fingers they can like nail the adaptation, and reviews are good so far, so we'll hope.
Yeah, I think even if you're not gonna, obviously, like you said, you can't show something like that, but hopefully you can. The hope is that people like actually read the source material and then take that and they're like, okay, I know the character's motivations during this, so I'm going to make sure the actor knows that, and I'm going to make sure that's in the writing, and like that's a really important job of like a showrunner, is making sure that they're like taking everything that they have and then putting it in, because you're never going to be able to fit everything, even in a TV series where there's so much more, and especially not in movies, that like you're not going to be able to take everything from the book and put it in there. So it is cool to go back and read the book and be able to get more insights into characters and just like see a little bit more where they're coming from. And it's nice when you can see that happening in the show and be like, okay, like they did this right. Like they obviously couldn't show everything, but like I'm getting the right essence of the character.
Yeah. And that's something I think Haunting of Hill House is another really good example of, is because it does go in a lot of different directions than the book, and it's a lot less like, I don't know, thoughtful, I guess you could say. But they understand the essence of the characters, and that's where it really shines through, and that's I think what matters so much with why that's such like a strong adaptation, is because they really just do get like the core message of the book and how like, I don't know, just spooky it is, I guess, and why it's so spooky.
Yeah, so true. Do you guys prefer TV adaptations or movie adaptations more?
It depends.
Yeah.
It does depend, yeah.
Because, like, I was talking to somebody about this. Like, I personally would not want to have seen the Hunger Games.
I thought of that one
trilogy
too.
as
I was like, that one
series.
is good as a movie.
Yeah, I think really what it is it depends on whether or not the books are following like one character arc or like multiple.
Oh,
That's a
that's
good
an
point.
interesting
I
point.
think,
Yeah.
because then you like need more time to explore that, and if your fave is left out of the movie, then you get really sad about it.
Yeah, true.
But like the Narnia movies, I'm obsessed with the Narnia movies. I think they're
Yeah, those
so
are
good, especially like the first two. Oh man, and I mean, it would be very interesting to me to see them as TV shows, but I really like them as movies.
Yeah, I think there are times when movies can be done well, but I really like that about like, are there multiple characters? I also think it depends on the length of the book. So like the Hunger Games books aren't very long.
Yeah.
So those ones work pretty well as movies, like, and they really are like, they follow like one event, so it works pretty well.
It's like one thing's going on.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like something like Harry Potter, I think we can all agree would probably work better as a TV series. However, when it was being made, TV is not the same that it was.
Yeah, because like Netflix wasn't as big, so it wasn't like legit.
Like, there's no way that
They didn't
would
have
have
that budget
been
at the
done
time.
well. That would have looked cheesy and stupid as a TV series because
absolutely.
because TV didn't have like the budget it does now. Now I cross my fingers that one day we will like get something like that. But let's see, what was I think I agree. Like, I think it makes, the other thing is when movies sometimes make more sense is if there's only like one book. If there's like a series of books and you have like 5 books in a series, you should just maybe make a TV series and like do an episode for each.
Yeah.
But like if there's just one book, like I think that's doable to like do in a movie setting. And yeah, especially like not having to do like the parts in a movie. Like I'm just glad like we have moved into like a more realm of like, okay, TV has a budget and we get good actors now and shows, and like streaming is everywhere. Like we can, the possibilities are endless, and so now we don't have to rely on movies to get a good adaptation or even an acceptable adaptation. We can have like actual good adaptations for things, which is cool.
I think there's also less grace room for adaptations in movies because like you have one film and you either like include everything that you deem relevant or not. But like TV shows, like, I mean, I've definitely seen plenty of TV shows where there's always like one episode where you're like, I'm not really sure why they did that, but it's okay because like it's, you know, whatever purpose they decided to write that for, like there's another chance for them to like, you know, still do right by the story. Whereas like movies, you put so much into it and there's like so much pressure to get it right that I think a lot of productions, like people get it into their, like stuck in their heads of like, we can't waste this money, so we have to like make something that everybody's gonna come see, and they forget the audience that's there, that you know,
forget why people are coming to see it in the
exactly
first place.
Yeah, that's true. I think it can work both ways too. There's some things that like if done well can be done well as a movie and as a TV series. A good example of this is the Babysitter's Club. They have like a really the movie is like so good. It's really cute. It was made like I think in like the 90s, so it's like it's much older, but like I love that movie adaptation. I think it's so fun. It captures the characters really well. The Babysitter's Club works because each book is like a different story, so you can really like make a new story for that, and like it works and it's okay. Like you don't have to follow the books exactly. And then Netflix just came out with a series, a TV series, and that one is also like equally so cute, captures the tone really well, like it's so fun. So I think that's a good example of something where like it can do well at both, like, and that's not always the case, but that's one I thought of that can kind of do a good job. Is there anything that you guys want like to see adapted into a TV show? Your dream.
Ender's Game.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Sorry, that was really loud. But
I didn't even think about that one. Yes, so
I think about that movie all the time, and just like all the ways it went wrong. And I'm rereading the book series right now, and it's got so much potential to be just this fantastic TV adaptation where they go from the beginning of the end to the end of the novel and like show him as he like actually grows up. Yeah. But they did not capitalize on that at all.
And I was just listening to one of the prequels, The Swarm, which is like Mazer Rackham right before the Second Formic War, and oh my gosh, just that, like you could have, and like if people got tired of you know, like we don't want to hear about Ender anymore. There are so many other amazing
There's like
characters.
20 novels, and they're all good.
Know.
Yeah.
You could talk about Mazer Rackham. You could talk about like Valentine. Like,
you could talk about like Bean and do like Ender's Shadow.
I
Like there's so much potential.
You've given me like a new dream because that movie was one of the biggest disappointments of my entire life.
And I love Asa Butterfield so much, and I was just like, why?
That poor boy.
But I think the problem, I mean, that goes back to the thing of like Ender's Game is remarkable because it's on top of just being like a story about a kid going to space and fighting this war. There's so much like, you as the reader, you need to think about this. Like, you need to think about the morality of this, the philosophy behind it. Like, what decisions would you be making in this situation? And, like, when you put that into a movie, it's not necessarily, you don't get that time to, like, reflect on, like, what's going on. I love Ender's Game.
True. It's a good one. You really got us on a tangent there.
I'm very passionate about Ender's Game and very passionate about that movie for the wrong reasons.
Oh yeah. I really would like to see the Raven Boys adapted.
Yes.
That one was actually apparently
gosh.
It was in works to be adapted by Sci-Fi, which did The Magician. So I was like, okay, like, this is good.
Yeah.
But I think it fell through. But I would love to see something like that happen. I think that book series is so
came in a
fun.
blue cosplay.
Oh yeah, that would be
That would be
I
really
just
cool.
love her style. Man, the fan art online is so good.
such a good one. Brianna, do you have any?
I have two.
Yes.
So, I loved reading scary stories to tell in the dark as a kid.
Ooh.
And I know they did a movie, but like it was just kind of, I didn't see the movie, but I like know what it's about and everything. But I think it would be cool if they did like an anthology series.
That would be really cool.
With like the scary stories to tell in the dark stories, because those were fun and that would be really cool. And then also I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, so like the Poirot books.
Yeah.
Hercule Poirot.
Yeah, that would be a cool
I just got an
series,
image
too.
of Kenneth Branagh with
Yeah.
that massive mustache.
Another one that I wasn't very happy about,
Yeah.
but it would be cool to see that as a series.
Yeah.
I also really want to see the Young Wizard series by Diane Duane, which like nobody knows about, but it's the best. It's so good because it's about these like two kids in New York, and it's like urban fantasy, and they become wizards, and
Cool.
there's like talking, like there's whale wizards, they go to space, there's like alien exchange students, like it's just so good. And then also anything from Tamora Pierce. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay,
like
yeah.
Alana
I read
the
that stuff
Lioness
when I was younger.
or Caladri.
There's a lot of content there.
There's
They
so
could do
much
so
content
much
in
there. That would be really cool.
The other one that I would really love to see adapted is the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon
Oh,
Sanderson.
yes.
Yeah. Those are just, it's such a tight like trilogy of novels, and it's got a great female protagonist, it's got like this great heist, it's got this amazing magic system that I think would look so cool to see actually like fleshed out on screen. And that's one that I think if they like really did it justice, it could genuinely be like as big as like Game of Thrones or something
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
you're right. I know so many people love Mistborn.
Yeah, it's a
haven't read
huge
it, but I
series.
know it's so popular. It would do like extremely well, just like Game of Thrones. And yeah, I look like it's nice when there's like with big books and big book series like that. Like they're so just like they're ripe for the picking
Yeah.
for a
There's
TV
so
show.
much content.
There's so
Yes.
much potential, yeah.
Like,
and
that's
there's an
something-
audience too, you know, like people
and
are
that's
so
something
ready
that
for
should
these
not be a
things.
movie. Like it
Absolutely
needs to be a TV show or nothing.
I do think that, like, I don't know if you guys have read the Graceling books by Kristen Cashore. The magic and, like, the world building is just really, really interesting. But those are books because it's like, there's 4 books and each of them follows a different character.
Oh, cool.
So those are books that I actually would be super interested in seeing as movies because they're all based in the same world and they like characters interact with each other, but it like switches perspectives every book.
That's cool.
And I think that would be super
I think
cool.
that one was in the works like a few years ago.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
What was I gonna? Do you guys like? Is there a dream platform? Like, if you were allowed to create a show on, if you were given the rights to make Ender's Game, who would you want to sign? Who would you want to like? For me, I think HBO. I think they just like have the biggest budgets. They seem to do really well with it. You don't have to worry as much about like censorship on there, and you can kind of just like, they just kind of go for it with their stuff, which I really appreciate. But I mean, all of them are kind of like have their own things and stuff. Netflix is up there.
I think for Ender's Game, I think Amazon Prime would be a
Amazon,
really
I
good
was gonna
choice.
say Amazon.
Yeah, because they've just got they've really proven
Yeah.
themselves on the sci-fi front, and so I think they could just really do that justice.
Love that. Yeah, that's great.
And I think HBO probably for Mistborn would be probably the best choice. Yeah.
I don't know if I really like Shadow and Bone is really good, but I don't know if I yet have like enough trust in Netflix to do fantasy adaptations.
I agree.
Yeah. Where I just because are they the ones who did the Shannara Chronicles? Who did that? Yes. Oh, MTV did it. Oh, and then okay, yeah. Well, I don't like MTV either. I was very disappointed about that. But I don't know. Like, if Netflix like continues to, I think what's wonderful about Netflix is I feel like Netflix has a lot of different kinds of content on their platform, so they're not necessarily restricted by like say Disney, which has like a very specific idea about the content that they're trying to produce.
They also probably have the widest viewership.
Yeah.
So like the most people have the
definitely.
chance to see it on there. It's like not gonna be like Disney's restrictive in like you have to make certain types of things, and like other other platforms, not everyone's gonna have them. Netflix though, you can pretty much guarantee that everyone's gonna have that one.
I would really love to see like a super camp fantasy show that's like an adaptation. Like I would just like, can you imagine The Magicians on CW?
Oh gosh.
It would be a train wreck, but it would be really
Let's
funny.
not imagine that. We have a few more minutes left. I just wanted to open it up in case anybody had questions. Totally fine if not, but if you do, you can raise your hand and I'm calling you. Yes.
How do you feel about, like you've mentioned Magicians a lot, how it's your favorites, but how do you feel about adaptations that randomly throw in like musical episodes?
Okay.
Where they just like make the whole thing songs?
Okay, so she asked how we feel about adaptations that randomly throw in musical episodes.
Is this a Riverdale question?
Well, The Magicians does it as well.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. I think I've seen both. I've seen Riverdale and Magicians do it, and I think one does it a lot better than the other.
Wait, which one do you think? I haven't seen Riverdale. So.
Oh, Riverdale does it terribly.
Okay.
The Magicians ones I think are so fun, and I think they do it well because they incorporate it into the story. One of the episodes it's a musical episode, but they're like cursed that they have to sing, so like makes sense.
Yeah.
Riverdale, they're just like singing because they're singing.
I like it because I think Riverdale's pretty bad in general, and so having a musical episode just kind of fits the bill.
That's true.
But in terms of quality, I see what you're making.
If you make it make sense in the world, then I think like musical episodes are fine and dandy.
Yeah.
Especially if they can sing. Like I think one of them, I think it was like Alice. Was it Alice in Magicians who was like, I can't really sing, you guys, and then they just like gave her like a really
she doesn't do much. They like highlight the people who can sing really well.
Instead of like forcing everyone to like equally contribute.
Yeah, I think musical episodes are an interesting genre all on their own.
I know,
But they can be really enjoyable. I think you're right. Like make it work within the thing and it'll be fine.
Well, in fantasy, like, was there a musical episode of Once Upon a Time?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was bad.
Yeah. I was like, that just feels like that would be something Once Upon a Time would do.
Yeah.
I think I usually just like them because they're funny.
Yeah.
Like, it just makes me laugh. They did it also with Grey's Anatomy, which like is not an adaptation, but it was pretty funny.
It's also like The Flash and Supergirl, like, it is a whole genre.
The TV musical episode.
So funny. Seriously. Next year's panel, the TV musical episode.
Let's talk about it.
Now I wish Breaking Bad would have gotten a musical episode. What a disappointment.
Before its time.
Okay, but Madam Secretary, like, half of the ensemble are all like Broadway vets.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, they should have done a musical.
Yeah, they should have.
It would have
feel
made
like that
absolutely no sense, but it would have been good.
Lost opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, if your actors can sing, go for it. It works. Do we have any other questions? Yes.
Love the books. They changed so much in the TV show that it was just so different. And they gave Simon's favor ending to someone else. And I don't think they got the notice here that closing the series. It could have gone on for so many more seasons. There were so many things from the books I wanted to see. But did you like the way they ended it? And giving Simon's fame kind of to someone else? In case somebody hasn't seen it. Or read the books, you know,
So I never got through the first episode of the Shadow.
You did? Oh wow.
I think when it first came out, I was very excited. I watched the premiere. I think I watched it with my mom. I sat down with her. She read the series. She read the books too, and like we love them. We watched the first episode. She continued watching it. I did not. And then I've gone back and I've tried to watch it a few times and still haven't been able to get through the first episode. But I have read a lot about it, so I do know what happens. And I did not like the ending.
My dad got super into it. I don't know why, but I would like come home and he would be like watching Shadowhunters.
Did you read the books?
No,
Okay.
he's never read the book. My dad is like a 6'3" guy who looks like a dwarf and a Viking at the same time. Like he's got a really big beard and he's bald and like it's hilarious. Like I don't know why.
That is
he's
such a
super-
dad thing.
I know. Well, that's how I like ended up watching most of the series because I would come home and he'd be watching it. So I wish that they had done justice by the characters, particularly the characters who are so beloved. Like I think Simon is one of the best characters in the series, and he deserved better.
He did, yeah. That series really could have done so much better, and unfortunately, the CW got it. So that's where it failed.
Do you know what though? Like, considering the plot of like the whole like, are we having? Is this an incestuous relationship or not? Like, I mean, there's only so far you can go with that before like producers are like, what is happening again? in
Yeah,
this
that's
story?"
true. Very good point. All right, well, we are out of time. So really quick, if you guys just want to share where we can find you online, or yeah, you want to start, Brown?
With me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or anything that you want to share at the end.
If you would like to, you can follow me on Instagram at Brianna Fajardo.
She shares a lot of book stuff.
I do. I will be creating a bookstagram eventually, but I haven't.
I don't really have a lot of public social media, but I do have a photography Instagram account that is akj.photos that I sometimes do super cool Halloween photo shoots with my sister, and I really like that. So
Cool.
follow me there, send me messages, whatever.
You can follow the best place to find me is probably on Twitter at C to Shining C, spelled CEE for the last one there. I don't know, just post a lot of weird memes and whatever my hot takes are of the day, so feel free to follow me.
I am online as Kailee Christina, and if you want to see any of the shows that I've produced, you can search Apple Juice Productions on YouTube, and you can see all those adaptations. They're super fun, highly recommend watching them. I most recently made a short called Bookish, and it features like a few different female literary characters, and Aubrey played one of them. So
I played Ramona Quimby,
Yeah,
and I'm
so
wearing the
lots
exact
of-
same outfit that I wore in that short film.
Tons
I
of
got
literary
one fancy
content.
dress, and that's it.
She's so cute. She does a great job. No, but lots of literary content on there, so that's where you should go and find me. But thank you guys so much for coming, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your FanX. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.